John had never thought much about his wife's past. His life with Lyra had been simple, calm, and full of joy. She was different from anyone he had ever known. When they met on a mission to a distant planet, he was immediately captivated by her otherworldly beauty. Her eyes, a deep shade of violet, sparkled as if they held the mysteries of the stars. Her silver hair shimmered in the sunlight. Her voice had a melodic quality that put him at ease. She was kind, loving, and patient. From the moment they had started their relationship, John had felt like he had found his perfect match. He spent days and nights talking about everything and anything life on Earth. Her home planet, their dreams, and their hopes for the future. Everything about her was captivating. The more he learned about her, the more he fell in love with her. But, as time passed, there were things she kept from him. Small, insignificant details that never seemed important. At first, John thought nothing of it. Lyra had come from a far-off world and her people were different. Her culture was different. They had their ways and John had never questioned them. However, he would soon realize that there was much more to Lyra than he had known. And it would change everything. It all started when they visited Lyra's homeworld. She had been invited to speak at a prestigious gathering of her people, and John, as her husband, was to join her. They traveled across the stars, and the journey was long. Filled with excitement and awe, as John saw planets and moons he had only read about in books. But nothing prepared him for what awaited when they arrived. Lyra's homeworld was unlike anything John had ever seen. It was a beautiful planet, covered in lush forests, towering mountains, and sparkling rivers. The air smelled fresh and clean, and the skies were a deep blue, almost purple, with twin suns that set in perfect harmony. The cities were magnificent, with sleek buildings that seemed to touch the sky. The streets were lined with vibrant flowers and plants from all over. The galaxy. When they arrived at Lyra's family estate, John was struck by the grandeur of it all. The palace-like structure was enormous, with elegant halls and rooms that seemed to go on forever. But it was the people who caught his attention the most. The inhabitants of the planet looked similar to Lyra, but there was something different about them. Their skin was a pale shade of blue, and their eyes were even brighter than Lyra's. They greeted her with warmth and respect, and John couldn't help but feel a little out of place. Lyra led him through the crowds, introducing him to various dignitaries and officials. Everyone seemed to know her, and she moved with such grace and confidence that John could only marvel at how important she was on her home planet. But as they passed through one of the grand halls, something happened that John would never forget. They stopped in front of a large ornate door, and Lyra turned to him with a smile. "There is someone I want you to meet," she said softly. "She's my sister." John raised an eyebrow. "Your sister?" Lyra nodded. "She's my twin. I haven't seen her in a long time." John's heart skipped a beat. A twin. Lyra had never mentioned a twin before. He had always known her to be an only child, and the idea of her having a twin seemed strange. He had never seen any other member of her family who looked like her, and the thought that there was someone else who shared her exact features was hard to imagine. Lyra opened the door, and John's breath caught in his throat. Standing in the middle of the room was a woman who looked exactly like Lyra. She had the same violet eyes, the same shimmering silver hair, and the same delicate features. She was dressed in an elegant gown, and her presence was just as commanding. As Lyra's, John blinked in surprise, unsure if his eyes were playing tricks on him. "John, this is Alara," Lyra said with a smile. "My twin sister." John was speechless. The woman in front of him was a perfect copy of his wife. Even their voices sounded the same. It was as if he were looking at a mirror reflection of Lyra. He tried to find something different, something that would set Alara apart, but there was nothing. She was exactly like Lyra in every way. Alara stepped forward, a warm smile on her face. "It's nice to meet you, John," she said. Her voice was just as melodic and soothing as Lyra's. John managed to shake off his shock and smile. It's a pleasure," he said, though his mind was racing as the evening went on. John found himself becoming more and more confused. Lyra and Alara interacted as if they were not just sisters, but something more. There was an unspoken connection between them, a bond that seemed to transcend words. They shared knowing glances, subtle gestures, and a sense of unity that John couldn't fully understand. Later that evening, as they sat down for dinner, John asked Lyra about their connection. "How is it possible that you two look so alike?" he asked. "I mean, I knew you were from a different planet, but this is something else." Lyra smiled gently. "Ilara and I were born together. We share more than just our appearance. We share a deep bond, one that goes beyond what most can understand. It's the way of our people. We are connected in ways that are hard to explain." John nodded slowly, still trying to process the information. There was a lot about Lyra's past that he didn't know, and it left him feeling uneasy. He had always thought he knew her completely, but now, with the appearance of Ilara, everything seemed uncertain. As the night wore on, John couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the edge of something much bigger than he could comprehend. Lyra and Ilara's connection was more than he had imagined. He had always thought their relationship was unique, but now he realized there were layers to it that he had never considered. The more he thought about it, the more questions began to form in his mind. Why hadn't Lyra ever told him about Ilara? Before, what was the true nature of their bond? Most importantly, how would this change his life with Lyra? John didn't know the answers yet, but he had a feeling that his life was about to become far more complicated than he ever imagined. And the journey to uncover the truth was just beginning. The days following their arrival on Lyra's homeworld felt like a blur to John. He had been overwhelmed by the new surroundings. The strange beauty of the planet, and, of course, the shock of meeting Ilara, Lyra's identical twin. Everything about their connection seemed to defy what John had known about relationships. The twins were more than just family. They seemed to share something that John couldn't put into words. It was as if they were not just sisters, but two halves of a whole. John had spent the last few days trying to adjust to the new world around him, but the more he observed, the more the strangeness of the situation began to weigh on him. Lyra and Ilara were inseparable. Wherever Lyra went, Ilara followed, and vice versa. They spoke in unison sometimes, finishing each other's sentences, or would laugh at something no one else seemed to understand. It wasn't just the way they looked alike. It was as though their minds were somehow connected. One morning, while they were walking through the palace gardens, and John finally decided to ask Lyra about the bond she shared with Ilara. He needed answers. As they strolled between rows of colorful alien flowers, John turned to his wife and spoke quietly. "Lyra, I need to know more about your connection with Ilara," he said, his voice filled with a mix of curiosity and confusion. "I can't stop thinking about it, the way you two. You seem so in sync, like you're not just sisters, but something more, something connected." Lyra glanced at him, her violet eyes softening as she smiled. "It's not easy to explain," she said, her voice gentle. "The bond between Ilara and me goes deeper than just being siblings. It's a part of who we are. We are connected in ways that others don't understand. You feel what the other feels, sometimes without even realizing it." John nodded slowly, trying to process her words. "But why didn't you tell me about this before?" he asked. "I mean, we've been married for a while now. I thought I knew everything about you." Lyra's smile faltered for a brief moment, and she stopped walking. They stood still for a moment, the sounds of distant waterfalls and chirping creatures filling the air. Lyra took a deep breath, as though choosing her words carefully. "I didn't tell you about Ilara because I didn't think it was necessary," she said softly. "I wanted to share my life with you, not my past. I've spent years living in a world where I've been seen as different because of this bond, and I didn't want to bring that into our relationship. I thought if we focused on us, on building our future together, it would be enough." John felt a wave of understanding wash over him. Lyra had always been private about certain things, and this bond with Ilara was something she must have found difficult to explain. But now, as John stood in front of her, it felt like there was a wall between them that he couldn't break through. He wanted to understand, to feel as close to her as he always had. But the mystery of Ilara was beginning to cast a shadow over their marriage. "I'm not sure I can handle it," John admitted quietly. "I don't know how to share you with someone else, even if she's your sister. I don't know if I'll ever understand this. connection you have with her. Lyra reached out and placed a hand on his arm. I understand, John. I never wanted to make you feel like you weren't enough. But Alara and I are a part of each other. Always have been. It's not something I can just turn off. It's not about sharing you with her. It's about the bond we have. It doesn't change my love for you. John didn't know what to say. He loved Lyra with all his heart. But this new reality, this connection between her and Alara, was more than he could comprehend. Every time he saw them together, their shared glances, and the way they seemed to communicate without speaking, John felt more and more like an outsider. Later that evening, the twins invited John to join them for dinner. As they sat around a large table covered in fruits and delicacies from Lyra's homeworld, John watched as the two women interacted. It was like they were one person, sharing everything between them: thoughts, emotions, even the smallest of gestures. They seemed to know what the other needed before they asked. At one point, Alara noticed that John was watching them, and she smiled gently. You're still getting used to us, she said, her voice soft and comforting. It's strange, isn't it, to see two people who are so in sync, so connected, that it feels like they're the same person. John looked at her, feeling a mix of admiration and uncertainty. It's not that it's strange, he said slowly. It's just overwhelming. I've never seen anything like it. The way you two are, it's like you're not just sisters, but something more. Alara nodded, her eyes thoughtful. That's how it's always been. It's how we were born. It's a part of our people's nature. Our culture believes that twins like us are created for a purpose, to balance each other and maintain harmony. We're not just family. We're two halves of a whole. We feel what the other feels. We sense each other's thoughts, emotions, and even dreams. John felt a chill run down his spine. The idea of feeling another person's thoughts, their deepest feelings, was something John couldn't even begin to understand. It was a level of connection that seemed beyond human comprehension. Lyra smiled softly at him. Wow. I know it's a lot to take in, John, but Alara and I have always had this bond. It's not something we can control. It's who we are. And I want you to know that my love for you has nothing to do with this connection. It's about us, about what we've built together. John's heart softened as he looked at Lyra, her words sinking in. He wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that their bond was real. But the more he learned about the twins, the more he felt like his place in their world was uncertain. He had married Lyra. But now he was being introduced to a side of her he hadn't known existed, as the evening wore on. John couldn't shake the feeling that his life with Lyra was changing in ways he wasn't ready for. Alara was a part of her past, and that past was now becoming a part of his present. The question was, could he accept it? The more time John spent on Lyra's homeworld, the more he felt like an outsider in his own life. It wasn't just the culture or the strange beauty of the planet. It was the bond between Lyra and Alara. It was deeper than anything he had ever imagined. And the more he learned about it, the more questions arose. Questions he couldn't ignore. Over the next few days, John observed the twins closely. They didn't just share the same appearance or mannerisms, they shared everything. It was as if they had no boundaries, no separation between them. Had always believed that the love he shared with Lyra was unique, but now he wasn't sure. He wasn't sure if there was even room for him in this connection. One evening, after a quiet dinner, John asked Lyra about the history of her people. He wanted to know more and needed to understand the connection between her and Alara. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was normal. The questions inside him were becoming too heavy to ignore. Lyra, he began, his voice softer than usual. I've been thinking a lot about your people, about your culture, and ... About you and Alara? I know you've told me a bit about the bond you share, but I feel like there's more I don't know, more you're not telling me. Lyra looked at him with those deep, violet eyes, as if weighing his words. She had always been open with him, but this was different. This was about something beyond their relationship. This was about her past, her culture, and the very essence of who she was. You're right, Lyra said, her voice steady but filled with a sadness that John hadn't noticed before. There are things I haven't told you, things I didn't want to burden you with. John felt his heart race. What kind of things? Lyra hesitated, then sighed. Our bond, the one Alara and I share, it's not just something that happened by chance. It's something our people have long believed is part of their destiny. You see, twins like us are created for a specific purpose. We're not just born, we're chosen. John's confusion deepened. Chosen for what? Lyra took a deep breath. Our people believe that twins like Alara and me are a vital part of maintaining balance in the universe. We are born to protect something powerful and ancient. When we are born, our minds and souls are linked, and we are given a task that we must fulfill together. John could feel the weight of her words, but the more she spoke, the more his world seemed to shift beneath him. This wasn't just about a close family bond, it was about something much bigger, something beyond love, beyond anything he had understood. What do you mean given a task? He asked, his voice tight with uncertainty. What kind of task? Lyra looked away, her face troubled. The truth is, John, I don't even fully understand it myself. Something my people have kept secret for generations. The bond between Alara and me isn't just emotional or spiritual. It's a link to something much older. Something that, if broken, could destroy everything. John's mind raced. He had never felt more out of place in his life. But why didn't you tell me? Why keep something like this hidden? Lyra's eyes softened with regret. I didn't want to burden you with this knowledge. I didn't want you to think I was hiding things from you. But it's more than that. It's not something I can change, John. This bond, this connection between Alara and Ms., something we can't ignore. It's a part of us. John stood in stunned silence. The truth was unfolding before him, but it wasn't what he had expected. He had thought that love, that emotional connection, was enough. But now he was realizing that Lyra's life, her purpose, was tied to something he could never fully understand. Lyra reached out and gently took his hand. I never wanted you to feel like you were part of this world, John, but now with Alara in our lives, you are. Our bond, it's not just ours anymore. It's yours too, whether you want it or not. John pulled his hand away, taking a step back. I don't know if I can be part of something like this, he said, his voice strained. This isn't what I signed up for. I thought I was marrying you, Lyra, not some ancient bond that I have no part in. With sadness, but she didn't argue. She had never wanted to force John into this world, but she knew that the truth was unavoidable. I never wanted to make you feel like this, John. I wanted to be your wife, to share a life with you. But this bond, it's a part of me. It's something I can't escape. John felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath him. He had fallen in love with Lyra, not her past, not this mysterious bond with Alara. But now, it seemed that everything he had thought he knew about her was being called into question. The next few days were tense. John avoided spending too much time with Lyra and Alara, trying to process everything he had learned. He spent most of his time wandering the palace grounds, trying to clear his mind. But every time he saw the twins together, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pushed further and further away. One evening, while sitting alone by a tranquil pond, John heard footsteps approaching. He turned to see Alara standing there, her eyes filled with concern. John, she said softly, I know this is hard for you. I know everything is changing and it's overwhelming, but you need to understand something. Lyra and I didn't ask for this bond. We didn't choose it. It's just ... part of who we are. John looked up at her, his expression torn. I'm trying to understand, but it's hard. I thought I knew what our relationship was, but now I feel like I'm losing her to something I'll never fully understand. Alara's face softened. You're not losing her. You have to accept that we're not just sisters. We're something more, and that means you too are part of this, whether you accept it or not. John looked away, his heart heavy with uncertainty. He loved Lyra, but how could he compete with a bond as deep and ancient as the one she shared? With Alara, he didn't know if he was ready to be part of something that felt so out of his control. The days following John's conversation with Lyra and Alara were filled with tension and uncertainty. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he thought he knew about his relationship with Lyra had been turned upside down. Her bond with Alara was stronger than anything he had ever imagined, and John found himself questioning his place in their world. It was early one morning when everything took a turn. John had been sitting alone in the palace garden, lost in thought. The lush greenery around him was beautiful, but it did little to ease his troubled mind. He had always imagined his life with Lyra as simple and full of love, but now he was part of a complex story, one that he didn't fully understand and was unsure if he even wanted to be a part of. His thoughts were interrupted when Lyra appeared at the edge of the garden, her silver hair glistening in the soft morning sunlight. She looked at him with a gentle expression, as though waiting for him to speak. John had always admired how calm and composed she was, but today he could sense the weight of her emotions. "John," Lyra said softly, taking a few steps toward him. "Can we talk?" John nodded, trying to push aside the knot in his stomach. He was still confused, but he knew he couldn't avoid this conversation forever. He needed answers. They both did. Lyra sat down beside him, her gaze never leaving him. "I know things have been difficult between us," she began. "I never wanted to hurt you. There's something I think you should know." John raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" Lyra hesitated before speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's more to our connection, John. Something I never told you. It's not just Alara and me, there's something else. Something I've kept from you." John felt his heart race. "What do you mean? What's going on, Lyra?" Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering the strength to continue. "It's about the memories we share. Lara and I don't just feel each other's emotions. We share everything, our thoughts, our experiences, even our memories. It's how we were born, and it's how we've always lived. But there's something more. Our memories are not just ours. They are connected to something much larger than us." John's mind spun. "What do you mean, connected to something larger?" Lyra took a deep breath. "Our memories are linked to the history of our people, the things we've experienced. The knowledge we carry, it's all part of something ancient, something that has been passed down through generations. It's why we are the way we are. It's why Alara and I are so in tune with each other. But it's also why we are chosen to fulfill a greater purpose." John's confusion deepened. "And this purpose, what is it?" Lyra turned to him. Her violet eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "I don't know all the details, John, but I've learned that our people believe we are meant to protect something. Something that, if it were to fall into the wrong hands, could change everything. Our bond is not just emotionally, it's a safeguard, a way of protecting this knowledge." John's heart skipped a beat. "What knowledge? What are you talking about?" Lyra looked away, her voice shaking slightly. "I wish I could tell you more, but it's not just my story. It's Alara's too. And it's something that is passed down to us when we reach a certain age. We are given the memories of those who came before us. It's not just a family history. It's the history of our entire people, their struggles, their victories, their failures. And it's all stored in our minds, waiting to be unlocked when the time is right." John sat in stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. He had always known Lyra was special, but he had no idea that her connection to Alara went so far beyond anything he had imagined. They weren't just sisters, they were the guardians of some ancient secret, a secret that was now tied to his life as well. "I don't understand," John said finally. "Why didn't you tell me any of this before? Why keep it a secret?" Lyra's expression softened. "Shh, because, John, I didn't want to burden you. This is not something anyone should have to carry. I wanted us to be happy, to build our life together without the weight of this ... responsibility. But I can't keep hiding it from you. You deserve to know the truth." Before John could respond, he felt a presence beside him. He turned to see Alara standing there, her soft gaze fixed on him. She had been quiet until now, but there was something about her that made John feel both comforted and unsettled at the same time. "John," Slara said softly, "I know this is hard for you. It's hard for us too. But we need you to understand that we are not just two women bound by family. We are more than that. We are protectors of something that has been passed down through generations. And now, We need your help. John's eyes widened. My help? With what? Ilara knelt down. Beside him, her voice low but steady. There are forces at work that seek to destroy what we protect. They want to use the knowledge we hold for their own gain. We can't stop them alone. We need you, John. We need your strength, your love, and your trust. Together we can protect everything we've worked so hard to build. John stared at both women, his heart pounding in his chest. He had always known Lyra was special, but this was something entirely different. They weren't just a couple. They were protectors of something far beyond his understanding. And now it seemed that their fight had become his own. As John looked into Lyra's and Ilara's eyes, he knew that there was no turning back. He'd been drawn into a world far bigger than he had ever imagined, and the truth of what lay ahead was both exciting and terrifying. He wasn't sure if he was ready for what was to come, but he knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't walk away from Lyra. No matter what it took, he would stand by her side. The days after John's conversation with Lyra and Ilara were filled with a mix of fear and uncertainty. The truth about their bond, their shared memories, and the ancient responsibility they carried had shaken him to his core. Had never imagined that Lyra's world was so much bigger, so much more dangerous than he had realized. And now, it seemed like he had been pulled into a fight he didn't fully understand. John had always thought that love was the most important thing. In his relationship with Lyra, he believed that love could conquer anything, that it would be enough to overcome any obstacle. But now, as the reality of the situation settled in, he felt more lost than ever. Lyra and Ilara were part of something ancient, something that had been passed down through generations. Their bond was not just about family or love, it was about duty. And John wasn't sure if he was strong enough to carry that weight with them. The twins had made it clear that they needed him. They needed his strength, his trust, and his love to protect what they had been chosen to guard. But John wasn't. Sure, if he could be part of something so big, so much bigger than himself, he had always thought he was just a man, a simple human. But now he realized that in the eyes of Lyra's people, he was more than that. He was part of their fight, whether he wanted to be or not. One evening, as John sat alone in the garden, lost in thought, Ilara came to him. She had a look of determination on her face, and for the first time since meeting her, John saw something in her eyes that reminded him of Lyra, something strong, something fierce. John, Ilara said, her voice steady, I know you're struggling with all of this. I can see it, but you need to understand something. This isn't just about us, it's about the future. It's the future of our people, of our world. We can't do this alone. We need you. John looked at her, his heart heavy. I don't know if I'm the right person for this, he admitted. I'm just a man. I don't have the power you to have. I don't even fully understand what's going on. Ilara sat down beside him, her presence calm but unwavering. You're more than just a man, John. You're the one Lyra chose. And that means something. You have something inside you that's stronger than you know. Something that can help us. But you have to trust in it. You have to trust in yourself. John turned his gaze away, staring at the stars above them. The night sky was so different from Earth's, filled with unfamiliar constellations that seemed to shine brighter than anything he had ever seen. For a moment, he felt small, insignificant in the vastness of the universe. But then he thought about Lyra, about the love they had shared, thought about the way she had always been there for him, how she had trusted him even when the odds seemed impossible. I don't want to lose you, Lyra, John said quietly, his voice barely a whisper. I don't want to lose what we have. Lyra's gaze softened. You won't lose her, John. But this is bigger than just the two of you. This is about something we've been chosen to protect. And it's about the future of our world. It's about keeping the balance, ensuring that what we guard doesn't fall into the wrong hands. John's mind was spinning. He wasn't sure if he was ready to be part of something so much bigger than himself. But he knew one thing: he loved Lyra, and he couldn't walk away from her. I had to trust that he had the strength to help, even if he didn't understand everything. Not for himself, then for her. Okay, John said, his voice steady but uncertain. I'll help. I'll be there for you. For Lyra, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I'm strong enough. Lyra smiled, a hint of pride in her eyes. That's all we need, John, to stand with us. Together, we can do anything. Next few days passed in a blur. John trained with Lyra and Alara, learning about the ancient history they were tasked with protecting. They taught him what they knew about the knowledge stored in their mind secrets that had been passed down through generations, and how those secrets were now under threat from dangerous forces. John was overwhelmed by the weight of it all. But he knew he couldn't back down now. He had made a choice, and he wasn't going to turn away from it. But as John spent more time with the twins, he couldn't help but feel like an outsider. Their bond was so deep, so unbreakable, that it was hard to find his place in it. They shared everything, their thoughts, their emotions, even their memories. It was like they were two parts of the same person. And while John loved Lyra with all his heart, he sometimes felt like there was no room for him in their world. One night, as they sat together in the palace, Lyra turned to him, her eyes filled with concern. John, I know this isn't easy for you, but I need you to know that I love you. And no matter what happens, you are my partner. You are not just some outsider in this fight. No. You are part of it, and you always will be. Ow. John met her gaze, his heart swelling with love for her. He had always known that Lyra was special, but now he realized just how much she had changed his life. She had opened his eyes to a world he never knew existed, a world full of danger, mystery, and ancient secrets. And while he didn't fully understand everything, he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't let go of her. He couldn't walk away from this fight. I'm ready, John said, his voice filled with resolve. I'll do whatever it takes. To help, I won't let you down. Lyra smiled, her hand reaching for his. You've never let me down, John. I believe in you. As the three of them stood together, united in their mission, John knew that the road ahead would be difficult. But he also knew that with Lyra and Alara by his side, they could face anything. Together, they were unstoppable. John stood at the edge of the balcony, staring out at the horizon as the twin suns of Lyra's homeworld dipped below the distant mountains. The sky was a brilliant mix of purple and gold, and the air was thick with the scents of alien flowers that bloomed only at twilight. It was beautiful, almost peaceful, but John couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. His life had already been turned upside down by the revelations of Lyra and Elara's bond, their purpose, and the dangers that now surrounded them. The weight of their responsibility was heavier than he had imagined. The more he learned about the ancient knowledge the twins carried and the forces that wanted to destroy it, the more he realized just how much was at stake. It wasn't just their world at risk. It was the future of everything. John heard footsteps behind him and turned, to find Lyra standing in the doorway, her violet eyes filled with a quiet determination. Her silver hair, still shimmering in the fading light, was pulled back in a simple braid, and she wore a peaceful expression that contrasted sharply with the storm brewing inside John. You've been quiet lately, she said softly, walking toward him. Are you okay? John ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. I don't know if I'm ready for all of this, Lyra. This ... responsibility. This fight. Lyra stepped closer, her hand resting gently on his arm. You don't have to be ready for everything, John. You just have to be ready for us. For me? She paused, her voice softening. No, this isn't easy. It never was. But I need you by my side, not just for the fight, but for everything we've built together. What we have is real. And I need you to trust that, even if everything around us is changing. John looked into her eyes, searching for the comfort he had always found in her gaze. He had spent so much of his life thinking he knew what love was, thinking that love alone could solve any problem. But this was different. This was bigger than them. He couldn't just protect her with the love he had for her. They had to face an unknown future together, armed with nothing but the trust they shared and the strength of their bond. I do trust you, Lyra, John said, his voice steady. I trust you more than anyone. I just don't know how to fit into all of this. Your people's history, your purpose. It's all so much more than I ever imagined. I'm not like you, not from your world. I don't have the knowledge or the power you and Alara share. Lyra smiled softly and took his hand. You don't need to be like us, John. You just need to be yourself. It's all I've ever asked. Just as John opened his mouth to respond, Alara appeared in the doorway, her expression calm but serious. We need to talk, she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had been thinking deeply. John turned to face her. About what? Alara stepped forward, her eyes fixed on him. It's about the danger we've been sensing. There are forces gathering, ones that want the knowledge we protect. They're getting closer, and we need to act soon before they come for it. John felt a chill run through him. He had heard of these forces before, but hearing Alara speak of them so openly made it all too real. What can we do? He asked, his voice steady but filled with concern. Lyra stepped closer to Alara, her hand brushing against her sister's arm. We've been trained for this, John. We know what needs to be done, but we can't do it alone. This fight sits bigger than just us. We need you to help us, not just with your strength, but with your heart. Alara nodded. Bond is strong, but it's not enough on its own. We need someone who sees the world differently, someone who can think outside of our shared connection. We need you to be the bridge between us and the future. We need you to protect what we've worked so hard for. John looked between the two women, his mind racing. They were asking him to be something he wasn't sure he could be. They were asking him to step into a role that felt far beyond his capabilities. But as he looked at Lyra, standing beside her sister, so full of determination and courage, he knew he couldn't walk away. I'm with you, John said, his voice clear and strong. I'll help you. I'll fight for this. For you. Lyra smiled, the weight in her eyes lifting as she stepped forward and embraced him. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for believing in us, for believing in me. Lyra stood back, watching the two of them with a look of approval. We can do this together, she said quietly. We'll protect what's ours, and we'll make sure the future is safe. We just need to stay united. The three of them stood there for a long moment, the night air around them cool but comforting. It was a quiet before the storm, a brief pause before they would face the challenges that lay ahead. John knew that the journey they were about to undertake would not be easy. There would be danger, and there would be sacrifices. But in that moment, standing between Lyra and Alara, John felt a sense of purpose settle into his chest. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for certain. He would face it with them. They weren't just a couple anymore. They weren't just three people thrown together by fate. They were a team united by love, by trust, and by a shared purpose. And no matter what came their way, they would stand together, fighting for each other, fighting for their world, fighting for the future they believed in. As the three of them turned and walked back into the palace, the night sky above them seemed just a little brighter, as if the stars themselves were cheering them on. The path ahead was uncertain, but they would face it together. That John knew was all that mattered.